When we over-allocate water, or misallocate water, or inequitably allocate water, we harm society, we harm the environment, and we reduce the amount of economic return we can make. Most importantly in all this is water supply is not constant. The idea of a mean, stable flow is very scary. We have long and hard droughts. We have floods. And scarcity is most revealed when we're over-allocated and we hit a dry spell. That's when we have irreversible consequences. That's when the blank hits the fan. The question we have then is, how do we reallocate resources to make society better, to improve the environment and improve economic outcomes? We've heard a lot at the moment, we're heading towards market-based instruments. These are not the panacea. Market-based instruments need to be involved with very good and carefully crafted policy. It evolves to the uncertainty about the variability of water supply. Oops, sorry. This is my play area. This is 1 million square kilometres of something that looks like a kidney. It has the same function. It takes water and salt from my land. The more water we use, the saltier it gets. It becomes really nasty. That's our externality. A couple of things. I'll get this right. Sorry, wrong.
The red bit at the top.
Thank you very much. There we go. I missed it 3 times in a row. Okay, this bit. This is the Darling River. Between the top of that to the end of the system, at the Coorong, if I can press the button correctly. Oh, we've gone backwards. Is we lose 80% of water flow. It evaporates. Goes to dead-end gullies. It dries up. It's a very porous system. The next one we need to know about is the Murray. This is the big one. This is all that big, nice green irrigation stuff. And its major tributary, the Murray, the Murrumbidgee. Highly important. 80% of our basin is dedicated to agriculture. It produces anywhere between 40 to 50% of the gross value of agricultural product. That is income. That is price times quantity. 80% of Australia's agricultural income comes from exports. What you'll see there is 2% of our basins allocated to irrigation. And 1/3 of the value comes from irrigation. This is a highly fought over area. Water is gold. Water is money. It's highly fought after. 10% of our population lives inside the basin. A further 5% of people live in Adelaide. They get water from the Murray-Darling to keep them alive. We've got about 30,000 hectares, 30,000 wetlands in the basin, most of them on private property. It's a complex, nasty system, and it is highly variable. Our farmers adapt rapidly to drought and floods. We rip land in and out of irrigation in response to the supply. Farmers are not passive, they are active, and you need to model them as such. But we're highly and incredibly over-allocated. The Murray-Darling Basin Plan was designed to deal with this over-allocation issue. It adopts the common property approach. Decides the fact, oh listen, you allocated all your water to irrigators, you forgot about the environment. Now we need to rectify that. The question is how? We've reallocated the amount of water that irrigators can use. We're proposing to reduce the amount they can use by 3,200 gigalitres of water. A gigalitre is 1 billion litres of water. We have a public trustee going to manage these water resources for the public good. And we have minimum flow targets at the Coorong, and we also have salinity targets. So, how do we transfer this water? Well, we decided that we wouldn't penalise farmers by ripping the water off them. We could have justified that, but we didn't. We decided to spend up to $7.8 billion investing in water use efficiency. Water use efficiency for environmental flows is a how do I put this nicely? Self-inflicting harm. It doesn't work. I've got a couple of papers on that. I'm going to leave that right alone. But all you need to know that if you head down this path, you will not get enough water for the environment, you'll create a debt bomb, and sooner or later everything will go pear-shaped. What we're talking about is the RTB, the strategy we use for purchasing water off farmers by developing markets. Buyback. In Australia, our property rights have been decoupled, not only from land, but for water. We can sell our water and hold our land. We can trade. We have very active markets, both privately and between the government and farmers. We have 3 alternative right structures to deal with this variability. We have highly secured water to supplementary water, which is only ever allocated if there's water in the basin. Each structure along the basin, in each catchment, and we have about 21 of those, has different rights, has different values, different quantities of these rights. And as we use this water, of course, conveyance losses occur between point A and point B. Silly question I asked myself during my thesis was, could we construct an optimal plan to get all the water we needed for the Murray-Darling Basin for $3.1 billion? In economic terms, I constructed a constrained welfare optimisation which understood how farmers use the water by different states of nature, how they responded, how the environment needed for water, what a drought meant, what a flood meant. We do these hydrological realities. How do we move water between A and B? How do we deal with these structures? What the price of those structures were? How we met the plan objectives, all the institutional goals we had and the infrastructure we have there to maintain them. And I play around with the risk of climate change in 2 different ways. The good news, we can actually optimise the basin to get enough water to meet all the basin plan goals for $3.1 billion. This, of course, raises all sorts of nasty questions when I went to Canberra and I was involved in some interesting meetings. What is the 7.8 doing? What you'll see there is we suck all the water out of the Murrumbidgee because we can. We have distinct trade rules and why. Where you can get water from, all this is factored into the model. We can do a nice simple climate shock to this. This is something we did, the 450 is a nice average reduction in water supply. And you can quickly see there, well, you're tinkering around the edges, there's a slight change, nothing too much, but you can spatially reallocate the resources to make sure you get the amount of water you need for the environment and meet the environmental goals, still for 3.1. The most scary thing, of course, is our basin is not average. Droughts are the killer. When you actually have changed the frequency of droughts occurring in our basin, suddenly you have to change the entire portfolio. No longer are you buying down the Murrumbidgee, you have to buy down the Murray. The Murray then is still greatly over-allocated towards consumption. This is not handy. So what does this mean? When we talk about water reform, we're talking about environmental objectives. You have to understand a lot of things. One is that climate change greatly alters where water will be and where you need to purchase rights to gain the maximum benefit for society. In the Murray-Darling Basin, a 10% decrease in rainfall equals about a 30% reduction in inflows. We're a very dry place and droughts become more frequent. What we do have is some very sensible policy people that gave the CEWH a lot of flexibility. They can go back into the market and repurchase these rights to recalibrate their systems and learn over time. This is an ongoing policy where they will learn. Presently, they're still working out where they're going to put the environmental objectives and why. I'll be spending the next couple of my years in Canberra arguing with these people what these objectives are and how do we get water there. The property right structures are going to change dramatically as we go forward. But the use of markets mitigates risk, not only for the CEWH, but also for the farmers. The CEWH can trade with farmers. This gives us great flexibility. And you really need to understand the difference in 2 things in flexibility and water trade. There's the difference between a perennial producer A perennial producer is someone who grows tree crops, vine crops. You always need water versus your annuals. You don't have enough water as an annual producer, you don't plant. You sell your water to the perennials. Good money to sell water to perennials in our last drought. And that marketing strategy and tradability gives us great flexibility to deal with drought. Although welfare is supposed to increase, what you'll find when you go through the results is the total return from irrigation has fallen. However, the total return per megalitre has increased. Now, when I talk total return, I'm actually talking fixed costs plus variable costs. You must include fixed costs when doing economics of water. Otherwise, you do not know the true value of your property right. Secondly, water quality improves. This gives everyone significant advantages. Your water is more palatable to drink. It gives you more cropping options. The environment benefits. Lastly, the CEWH will be the major water holder in the basin. This is going to create all sorts of learning opportunities. The most important thing out of the basin plan, we bitch and moan about Australia, how we could have done this so much better, is now the environment has a defined right and it will be protected. The environment now has the same right as an irrigator. It never had that before. As we introduce more environmental targets along the basin, the whole portfolio will have to change. These are critical and interesting issues, which I hopefully get to play on. And I'm sorry to have bored you for so long. Thank you.
Well, thanks, David. Very good. I'm a bit afraid we need to change the speed and the order a bit, so we can't have that intensive discussions as we had with the speaker and in the previous session. So I would suggest we have one cue each after the presentation in order to keep in time for the others. So who would like to raise an issue? I see one.
Andrew Ross from Murray-Darling. This, you pronounce it CEWH or C?
Yeah, Commonwealth Entitlement Water Holder.
Commonwealth
Entitlement Water Holder.
Right. Are they the owners of the water?
They are, and what you then have is the Murray-Darling Basin Authority that sets the objectives to how to use the water. So we actually have a split mechanism between the owner and the person setting the priorities to define the environmental outcomes. That way you don't have, shall we say, meeting your own goals.
Thank you.
Here, Professor Peter Helm has described the requirement for a catchment system operator to synthesise all the various parties who are involved in demands on water and supply of water.
Yep.
So does your CEWH actually work as an operator?
It will act as the owner and operator, so it will own these rights and then it will use these rights to meet as many of the goals as possible.
And it raises its own money, does it?
We gave them $10 billion to start off with.
10 billion?
Yep.
They recover that return on investment through...
They will have to meet their own pricing structures. In other words, every year our water entitlements have a fixed cost and variable cost for delivery. They've got to meet that. When it comes to paying back the asset, no, because it's a public good. This is government money, this is a government organisation set up to manage it in the national interest. And because by increasing environmental flows, you get things like cleaning out the mouth of the barrages for free, instead of spending $80 million a year, we get all sorts of benefits up and down the system. We prevent things like irreversible losses in basins, up in parts of the wetlands, and hopefully we never see soil acidity again.
How do you write
It
the
is.
price?
It's very long, complicated procedures, but they opened up tenders in different regions. They went through, they worked out what rights they could get for a certain price. We ran through about 20 or 30 different tender systems. We spent a lot of money trying to do this. Did we do it correctly? Probably not. Did we do it better than others? Yes.
Thanks a lot. I'm afraid we now have to move on. Keep your question. I saw your finger coming up. This was an interesting conversation. So certainly there's one more in the back of the room, but we need to move on. So just keep the face in your mind, and then I hope it works out during the next break.
Sorry, suggest they be later.
Thanks for your understanding. So the next speaker would be Hiroshi Hamasaki from the Fujitsu Research Institute in Japan. So we are moving a bit more northwards from Australia to Japan and learn a bit more about a slightly different modeling approach, which is a CGE approach.
Yep.
And I look forward to your presentation, Hiroshi.
Okay.